I'm not here alone. Must thank my long lost or friend, Don Bazzelli. My roommate for 2 years in Farley, who, as far as I'm concerned, spent years teaching at the Rochester Institute of Technology for deaf children. Something I could not have done. But before I came here, I came from Dorothy and Harold McCarthy. And I have to thank them because my mother often said, to whom much is given, much is expected. And that would not have happened without some of the people who I have come to work with through Notre Dame. My mother's life was not easy. I had an older brother who died at age 2 in a home accident. I had a younger brother who suffered a stroke at age 7 and
We don't want to miss a minute, so I'm going to just tip it up.
Okay. And at age 7, died of an unknown medication during a treatment for kidney disease. My sister and father looked to her for strength, and what she gave to us was immeasurable. But again, to whom much is given, much is expected. My parents' expectations of us, and in particular my father from an educational standpoint, was that having gone to Seton Hall Prep and Fordham, when it came to deciding where I might attend, basically said, we've given the Jesuits enough. Let's see how let's see how the Holy Fathers do. Jack McDermott, who was a 6'7" priest, parish priest, who would continuously play football, basketball, and baseball with us in the backyard, developed or started the Young Christian Students Association. And on a way out to an Iowa convention, stopped off at Notre Dame. It was interesting that somehow the Jesuits allowed me to graduate from St. Peter's without a chemistry course, even though I had said that what I wanted to be was an engineer. I had several ND profs who were legends, not the least of which was Emil T. Hoffman. Now, can I have a raise of hands? How many might have had Emil T? Emil T. would start his lectures with, now you will remember from your high school chemistry course, the problem that I had with that was that he never then mentioned what it was. So the first, right, Quirt? So the first 2 months I was there, I would sink into my seat when he said, "You will remember." And I had a complete lack of memory associated with that. Now, another person who had a very significant impact was Father Ted, because I see I'm old enough to have had exposure to him. Okay? And what was amazing to me, he started the Institute for Church Life. And Mary and I served on that for a number of years. What was amazing to me was when I ran into him outside of Morris Inn, and he was being chauffeured around because of his impending blindness. And I said, "Hi, Father Ted." He said, "Hi, Brian." So you know that he was special. Academics were not just the only part of my development, but this place also led me to my wife. We'll be married 56 years. We've had, and I think you'll understand my saying this as a result of what I did, we had 6 pregnancies. One resulted in a trisomy 18. One that resulted in a hit-and-run accident on his way out to Philmont Scout Reservation when he was 15. Now, one of the things that was very evident to me, and that I clearly would like to thank him for, was a quote from Father Ted as to what Notre Dame can and should be. Notre Dame can and must be a crossroad where all the vital intellectual currents of the time meet in dialogue, where the great issues of the church and the world today are plumbed to their depths, where every single sincere inquirer is welcomed and listened to and respected by a serious consideration of what he has to say about his belief or unbelief, his certainty or uncertainty, where differences of culture and religion and conviction can coexist with friendship, civility, hospitality, respect, and most importantly, love. A place where the endless conversation is harbored and not foreclosed. I took a position with the Centers for Disease Control after medical school, where I spent my career in maternal and infant mortality work with the health organization, collaborating with the center at Emory University. And now I have to thank Dr. Bill Faggy, a giant in the public health arena, where he said that there are 3 things that had to happen. The first is the conviction that the basis for public health is to achieve health equity. Therefore, the bottom line is social justice in health. That's why I was afraid to follow you. Second is an understanding that the science base is epidemiology. It is epidemiology that determines the gaps in social justice, identifies the groups with poor health outcomes, discovers the details and disease causation, and provides clues to how corrective action can be taken. The third essential is that the need for good management for efficient implementation of corrective actions. That's taken from Dr. Fagie's book entitled The Fears of the Rich, The Needs of the Poor, and My Years at CDC. So you can, the type of person he was, still is actually, as I interviewed him for preparing for this, stands as a giant as a memory of one of the most prominent leaders for the Centers for Disease Control. I had other mentors, like Dr. Faggie and Dr. Godfrey Oakley, who supported the public health service work where we were doing and made it so we could be in the spaces and places that needed the most support. My last assignment was to lead the U.S. HHS Secretarial Initiative at Rabia Balki Hospital in Kabul, Afghanistan. We set up a training program in obstetrics, in pediatrics, in nurse midwifery, and I was supported by more individuals than I can give thanks to. But in particular, an obstetrician from the Indian Health Service in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, a pediatrician from the U.S. Public Health Service in Arizona, and nurse midwife Rosemary Bolza from Arizona as well. I think it's the last project, and maybe gave me an edge in receiving this humanitarian award. But again, I have to remind you that to whom much is given, much is expected. I have so much. We have so much. And much is to be expected. We should not be ending aid programs. We should not be pulling back support. We should not be abandoning our fellow humans because they happen to be in a different place. I have to remind you all that the University of Notre Dame is a very special place. A place that is so fortunate that I was so fortunate to attend, and a place that set in motion so many of my life relationships. I was only able to thank a few of the people in the place, and I need to sit down. My message tonight is one of gratitude for all of these people. This is my salute to my past, but it was also a challenge to the future. Let us remember to acknowledge the gifts we have been given. Let us set our expectations high for using those gifts and continue to develop the students here into public servants and into humans that look beyond themselves. Their communities and home to our global community. Now, I was to end it right here, but I had my son give me some advice. You said, Dad, this was last Saturday night, don't be too political. So when I was called and we talked, and I said, let me get to know you a little bit as well. And I learned that you were in your second month postpartum, that you had a 2-year-old. I was one of 3 senior epidemiologists at CDC who started PRAMS in 1989. Does anybody know what PRAMS is? PRAMS is the Pregnancy Risk Assessment Monitoring System that looks at all births in the United States and maintains records in order to say, is there something going on that we need to know about? I had, because of a meeting that is going to be held on Monday, had approached one of my colleagues at CDC, who happened to be a young woman who was on 24-hour call anytime I was in Afghanistan, which meant, because of the differences in the way work took place, meant that she was going to be on at telephone call from Kabul 24/7, 7 days a week. And I had asked her to give me a call because she had moved up in the sequence or in the power structure within CDC to be in charge of PRAMS. And when I asked her, could I have access to the data, she broke out crying. She said, I've been fired. Okay? I don't have access to the data. I don't know anyone who does. I'll end there because I want you to think about the implications of not monitoring women in the United States during their pregnancies and newborns in the first year of life. And to recognize also that on my way here, I learned that the lab at the Centers for Disease Control, responsible for monitoring drug resistance in gonorrhea, and one of 3 labs that can do that in the world, has been shut down. So I'll leave that thought with you. And I do thank you for this award, which is a great honor, but to realize that there were many people who were involved in giving me the opportunity to serve in this manner. Thank you very much.